And I am pleased to welcome to the 2025 edition of Statehouse Conversations, Micah Beckwith. He is Lieutenant Governor, a Republican of the state of Indiana, or you will be, or you are.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, duly elected.
Yeah,
I don't have to cheat you out of anything. And I jokingly say, and I am kidding, that we made you what you are because you were a frequent guest on some contentious issues with the Indiana Lawmakers show I host, and you always were willing to wade into the fray and defend your principles and talk about your views. Now you have a new platform from which to do that. What's your priority as Lieutenant Governor?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, John. I love the show. I love just Week in Review. You guys do a great job just diving into the hard issues, right? And I think debate is always good and civil, obviously, and respectful. But so appreciate first for all that you do. Really, going forward, myself as well as Governor Braun, we're very focused on streamlining government. There's a lot of waste, and it's not really because of any one person. It's just government grows and grows and grows, and it's hard to get it back under control. But Mike Braun, being the business guy he is, myself being a business guy, I think we're both coming in saying, where can we cut? What's not efficient? How can we make it efficient? And so already what's happened is a lot of streamlining, even in the transition. And right now we're day 3. And it's really starting to hum like a well-oiled machine in a lot of ways, and we're just getting started. So that's going to be the priority of Governor Braun, myself, and then we've got obviously the agencies that I oversee, like agriculture and Okra, and we can.
I do want to dive into that. Let me ask you this though: you were, for anybody who follows Indiana politics, they know that you were not the governor's choice to be lieutenant governor, but you ran a successful campaign, and delegates said, this is the guy we want.
Yeah.
And you won, and congratulations to you. How closely aligned is your agenda and what you want to see accomplished with what Mike Braun, the governor, is?
Yeah, so Mike and I have been friends for a long time. This wasn't, I think the media tried to make it something that it was contentious or divisive. It really never really was. He's always been a strong conservative. He's governed that way out in Washington. I've always respected how he's voted. I would say most of the time we're pretty much aligned on all the issues. I mean, very rarely do I ever hear or see him say anything from his years in Congress where I disagreed with him. So I think from the get-go, I think he recognized it was like, hey, we've got 2 good candidates in the convention. You had Representative Julie McGuire, who is great. She's a strong conservative. And then myself. And I think what I've proven since the election, the night of the election, is that I can help turn out the base. I can fire up the base and get the door knockers, get people who are passionate. And I think that's maybe where the Republican Party lost some juice over the last few years, where just that disenfranchised Republican that said, hey, you've forgotten us. Well, when I got on the ticket, I think we got them back. And I think the results showed that. And so I think if you ask anybody now, they'll say, hey, Mike is really bringing some energy to the party, and that's a good thing.
Well, in evidence, I guess, of what you're saying about being simpatico with this unique approach to transition where you had theme-based or issue-based pods, I guess, for lack of a better word, and you were instrumental in that and integral to that, and are, of course, part of the cabinet, the newly constituted cabinet. That's a little bit different than predecessors. So a lot of shared agenda topics, and then you look at the agencies, and you mentioned this a moment ago and gave us a bit of a foreshadowing there. One of the big ones you oversee, and your predecessors have overseen, is the Department of Agriculture and the state's agricultural efforts. And last time I checked, agriculture is still a pretty big deal in this state. There's a push to say maybe that's the Lieutenant Governor's office is the wrong place for that. Let's move that. Is that going to happen? And what are you prepared to do to see, presuming you don't want to see it happen, how is that a go-to-the-mat issue for you?
Yeah, so it is a go-to-the-mat issue for me, but not because of me, but because of what's best for farmers. I really believe that Senate Bill 202, which is that bill that you're referring to, that would remove me as being the Secretary of Agriculture, is not good for farmers. You lose the influence. The Lieutenant Governor platform has the power of convening. The office can move people to influence, for vision casting, selling Indiana ag, not only to the 4 corners of the state, but also to the nation and the world. When the Lieutenant Governor speaks, just the office itself has a platform. If 202 were to happen, you would lose, Indiana farmers would lose all of that. And I grew up in the dairy industry. I have a huge heart for farmers, and really it's not just a huge industry. I believe it really is the backbone economic driver of our state. If we fail in agriculture, everything else is gonna suffer. So we've got to make sure that it's strong. Now, I've talked to Senator Glick, who's the author of the bill. I had a nice conversation with her. I said, Senator, I'm all good with the debate, the conversation. You know me, I like debate. I like, if it's good, it's good, and you can prove your points, then great. But I did tell her, I said, I think what you're assuming is that if you take it away, you're going to have more of the governor's ear. I've seen kind of how this cabinet works. I think it unfortunately would get buried in the minutia of all the other agencies that are in the governor's ear right now. Right now, you've got sort of unimpeded access to the lieutenant governor. That's a good thing. I think the governor and I have a good relationship to where if I can call him up and say, Governor, we need your help on this agriculture issue. He loves agriculture himself, and he's ready to move. But
he's made it a priority. You talk about farmer access, state government, one-stop shop sort of issue. It seems that's, and talk about economic development in rural areas. 100%. So that seems to be well positioned for farmers.
Yep.
But this is, if I had to say what's job one, it's a defensive posture and saying, keeping what's currently the structure. Is that a fair assessment?
In just full transparency, very early on, I was talking to leadership, and they have no desire to see this go through. I mean, the bill is in rules right now, which is, Indiana politics, rules committee is usually where they put bills at. Probably are not going to go anywhere.
You can read between the lines.
That's right.
There,
leadership in the Senate has been very kind to me coming in. They've been very welcoming. Senator Bray, Senator Garton, Senator Holdman. They're all I've been very impressed with how they've welcomed both myself and Governor Braun into the discussions, into leadership, into casting vision for the state and being a team effort. So I have no worries that whatever needs to be done for Indiana and our farm world, our agriculture world, it's gonna happen.
So for anyone who had designs on that bronze pig outside your office, keep your hands off. It's not going anywhere.
That's right. It's not going anywhere.
The other agencies, briefly talk about what you want to see changes or improvements in those areas.
So the other big one that the Lieutenant Governor's office oversees is OCRA, which is Office of Community Rural Affairs. Really, the best way to look at it is taking the economic engines and just pouring rocket fuel into them in small communities. A lot of small communities need help getting infrastructure up and running so they can begin to build and foster economic growth. We've called on former Hamilton County Councilman Fred Glenn to be the director of OCRA. And what I love about Fred is he's a fiscal hawk. And I think, again, going back to what Governor Braun and myself first and foremost have to do, we got to trim the fat, because then it will function more efficiently. And Fred's the guy to do it. He's got a ton of energy. I mean, I thought I had a lot of energy. Fred's got more. I don't know where he gets it. He'll be to the four corners of the state. I've given him the mandate to say, hey, get to local officials, commissioners, council members, mayors, sit down with them. And I think there's been, since COVID, and again, not throwing anybody under the bus, I think it's just COVID probably did this more than anything else, kind of created a little complacency where people kind of just hunkered down and stayed in their office, and really they haven't gotten back out the way they need to. And Fred's got a desire to get out and get the team out. And so you'll start to hear more from OCRA, you'll start seeing more of it, and we'll help small communities get that federal grant money to be able to build their community so people will live, work, and play in the communities that they grew up in.
So much of the action now is at that local level. We used to talk about, as I've been around a long time and watched more and more powers and responsibilities shift from federal government to state. Increasingly now we see some of the same shift from state government to local.
That's right, which is great.
Which is probably
I love it.
What many would say is the way to do it.
It is, I agree.
Now you, before you had this job, you were a pastor, and I was asking you before, are you going to keep your day job, or I don't know which is the day job, but you are going to still have a hand in that.
Absolutely.
How will that work?
So the church I'm at is called Life Church. We have 4 campuses, and we've got a pastoral team. So it's not always just on one person to lead. We're a church of roughly 12 to 1,500 people on a Sunday between our 4 campuses, which is a good-sized church. But we hired an associate pastor to come in and run the operations at the campus I'm at, day-to-day operations. He's doing a great job. what I'll do is then step back to part-time and I'll just preach. So you'll see me on the weekends preaching. If you just attend on Sunday services, you probably won't notice a big difference. But one of the reasons I really felt called and I wanted to do that is it just keeps me grounded. And our church, great people, salt of the earth people, they'll speak truth to you. Like, so if I ever do anything, wrong or dumb, or I step out of line politically, they'll call me back into alignment. I just think it'll keep me accountable, it'll keep me humble, and it'll keep me sort of out of the swamp. It pulls me out of the swamp, at least one day a week. So.
Now, you'll be able to keep these responsibilities separate. I know you'll be presiding over the Senate. You might be tempted to issue an altar call or maybe pass the plate.
I've been doing it for a little bit. I feel like I can kind of wear the different hats accordingly. So yeah.
And since you're going to keep a hand in your pastoral responsibilities, you've said it's also important to keep your pastoral responsibilities in your state government role. Some people say that's problematic.
Yeah.
What do you say to those folks?
Yeah, so normally the pushback you get whenever you say, hey, I'm a pastor, I'm getting into politics, I believe there's a place for faith in politics. People always will quote the famous Jefferson letter phrase, separation of church and state. But if you look at our Constitution, I'm a constitutional literacy instructor, I've studied American history. Nowhere did our founders ever believe in a separation of church and state where the church didn't have a voice within the morality of the state. What they were saying, what Jefferson was saying in his letter to the Danbury Baptist Church in Connecticut in 1802, he was saying that the state has no business coming into the church. Because if you take the faith aspect out of our nation, my question always is, well, who gets to decide morality? Right? This is not about proselytizing people from government. I'm not saying we should be giving altar calls from the Senate chambers, but somebody has to decide what's right and wrong, because that's what law is. Law is based on somebody's idea of morality. So my question is, if you remove the Judeo-Christian foundations that our founders had, who gets to be that moral lawgiver? Is it you? Is it me? I hope not. I mean, I think we're both pretty good guys, but we're not good at being the moral lawgivers. Is it Donald Trump? I hope not. Is it Nancy Pelosi? I hope not. So somebody has to be the moral lawgiver. And that's what America for 236 years has been successful, because we didn't look to our own enlightenment. We looked to the creator of nature. And that's what the Declaration of Independence mentions God 4 times, the laws of nature and nature's God. And if we stick to those, and the Constitution then basically says, okay, the Declaration declares why we should be free. Constitution is what is the mechanism on how we stay free. And so all of that should be in our purview when we're saying, okay, how do we legislate? Who has the final supreme authority? And if you study Washington's letters, if you listen to Abraham Lincoln, if you listen to Jefferson and Madison and Adams and all of these amazing, even Franklin, people say he was not a strong believer. He knew more scripture than even our pastors do today. And they knew that if you root liberty in the laws of God, then you're going to have liberty protected for all people, for Christians, atheists, Jews, Muslims, Hindu. It will be better for everybody, and that's what I want for our state and for our nation.
Proof positive, it's going to be an interesting 4 years, because the view you articulate, love it or not love it, it's a departure, and it's
sure.
And you certainly have the strength of your convictions and are passionate about them. I applaud you for your commitment to your beliefs and your commitment to the state of Indiana and to public service.
Thank you,
congratulations on your new role, and look forward to seeing how things unfold here in the State House.
I'm excited. Anytime you want me back on, we
You're
can
still
review.
available, just like you'll still do your pastoral
That's
duties.
right.
You'll still do.
Yeah, because you guys, you're like the new version of Crossfire. Is how I look at it. Remember that old...
I'm old enough to remember Crossfire.
I used to watch when I was like 5 years old in my grandpa's living room.
You just made me feel... I think I would have said it was like 5 years ago when I watched it, and you were in your living room.
I was like, maybe I was 7.
You were precocious.
Yeah,
maybe. All right. Well, be careful. I'll hold you to that.
All right.
Micah Beckwith, Republican Lieutenant Governor, thanks so much for taking time.
Thank you, John. Yeah.